I got some new data today, and the data shows that Bitcoin's having its worst bull market ever. Now, there's two options here. Either we continue to have the worst bull market ever, or somehow there's going to be a catch-up trade. And if there is a catch-up trade, it's quite an obvious catch-up trade, because it's a catch-up trade to the gold and to the NASDAQ. And in the past, when Bitcoin has diverged from gold and NASDAQ, something big's actually happened. I want to show you what the data says actually happens when there is this divergence between Bitcoin, gold, and the NASDAQ. So we're going to talk about that. We also want to talk about a massive altcoin announcement, the Base token potentially being announced, and what implications that can have on the market. And you probably need to get into this Base token quite early if you want to be well prepared for some kind of Base airdrop. So we're going to talk about that. And lastly, we're going to talk about PumpFun and the, in inverted commas, the fuckery that's happening at PumpFun with these actual live streams. Now, there's a lot of people that are pushing back on this and saying it's it's garbage, it's not going to work, it's all about rugs and cash grabs. I'm going to show you that it's not. I think it's a revolution in streaming and in the creator economy, and you cannot discount this, and we're going to spend some time talking about that. So we're on the eve of the rate cuts. We are 24 hours, 25 and a half hours away from the rate cuts. Lots to talk about. Big show, big show. Let's get the show on the road, guys. GM. Good morning, guys. One day before the rate cuts. Tomorrow is going to be the day of the rate cuts. Tomorrow, we've also got 𝗏𝗏 coming on the show. Well, no, I'm filming with 𝗏𝗏. We'll drop it on Friday for you guys today. Today, also quite a big show on the eve of the rate cuts. And it's actually a massive week because it's not only rate cuts in the US, it's actually rate cuts in Canada. Not that anyone cares. In the UK and in Japan. So big rate cuts this week. Also, we've got that triple whammy on the options expiry. So quite a big week this week, and we're going to dissect this week just a little bit further on the show. We're going to talk about the Base token and the change in heart that Brian Armstrong had. Guys, it's so obvious that he was doing this to appease the old administration. And it was so obvious that as soon as the regulatory framework opened up for a token, Brian Armstrong was going to be the first guy to do a token. We're also going to talk about PumpFun. We're going to talk about Solana. We're going to talk about a whole lot of other things. So, guys, big stream. What you need to do, you know what you need to do. Just smash the like button. Let me get on with the alpha. I'm asking you just to smash the like. I do the rest. Let's start. I would say you can call it the calm before the storm. This is the calm before the storm because something, Hardest, that's a nice button, bro. Do that button thing again. I want to just see it again. That's a good button, bro. So, we are on the verge, on the eve of the rate cuts. A lot of people are going to think that these rate cuts are because of the economy, and they're going to think it's because of the data. It's not. There's a reason why these rate cuts have happened. It's what I call the ultimate game of 4D chess. And it shows how Trump and Bessent basically manipulated Powell and put him in a corner that he would have to lower rates. Now, look, I'm not going to break it down on this channel, but on the other channel, I left a video, which I think is very, very, very much worth watching, because what it shows is why the rates are actually being cut. Just listen to this. What do you think? Sounds good, right? Hold on. Let me unmute this. Unmute this. I need to unmute this tab, and I need to get it off 2-speed because I can instinctively see that this is on 2-speed. So let me get this onto 1-speed, and let me get this one onto to stop. And then let me go here and unmute the site so that you guys can hear a little bit about what this is actually, what's actually going on here. Cut rates for the first time since Trump came into power. Not for the first time in the cycle, for the first time since Trump came into power. And whereas at face value, most will think that these cuts are because of the economy or the data, the reality is that couldn't be further from the truth. These cuts, they were engineered. They were engineered by Trump and Bessent. And Powell, well, he doesn't really have a choice. He's been pushed into a corner in the ultimate game of 4D chess. And he's 2 moves away from checkmate. All right, so you guys can go and watch it in your own time. I'm not going to do it now. But suffice to say that the rate cuts are coming tomorrow. Now, look, right now there's a 96% chance of a single rate cut and a 4% chance of a second rate, of a double rate cut. Bessent is out there on the news wave saying, look, Powell should start with 50 basis point that would be the worst thing to happen to the markets. We cannot afford a 50 basis point rate cut now. And I explained to you why. I did explain to you yesterday, but I will explain it to you again why. So if we get a 25 basis point rate cut, it means the Fed's in control. It means the Fed's in control and we've got the soft landing and everything's under control. If they get a 50 basis point rate cut, it's going to be like the Fed's panicking. And the one thing the market doesn't want is the market doesn't want a Fed that is actually panicking. So I know that Bessent wants a 50 basis point rate cut. We don't want that. We also don't want them to be panicking on the dot plot. There is a dot plot tomorrow. We'll be watching it live and we'll be streaming it to PumpFun, by the way. But we will be watching it. You're nodding your head like as if it's like hard work. It's not hard work to stream to PumpFun, is it? It's easy. Okay. So I'm as I mentioned to you guys, I'm doing a water fast this week. So I'm in day 2 of the water fast. This is water and minerals, as you can see. It's day 2 of the fast. It's actually quite hard. I must be honest. I'm quite hungry. If you've done the fast and you got any tips for me, just give me the tips for me. So we're going to get a dot plot. We should also hope that the dot plot is a bullish dot plot. In other words, that these actually come down, that they're showing that they believe that rates will come down pretty quickly. Either way, I do believe that this is very, very, very bullish for the markets. Regardless of whether we get 50 or 25, I think we're going into a cutting cycle. And you can see here's some fun facts. 2025 will be the 3rd year since 1996 with a rate cut while the S&P is at record highs. Since 1980, the Fed has cut rates 20 times, with the S&P being within all-time highs. 100% of the cuts since 1980, with the Fed being at record highs, have had the S&P higher 12 months later. At the same time, rates are coming amidst the AI revolution, the biggest technological revolution of since the 1990s. The 1996 rate cuts, with the S&P at all-time high, led to a 22% rally in the next 12 months. So this is a big week. And Tom Lee says that it's taking us into a new phase in this cycle. So listen to this.
You alluded to some of the places that could see the biggest impact.
Yes.
But can you take us through those? If you had to put a top 3 together about where you think the most activity or juice could come from if the Fed were to embark on this path. I think of maybe home builders. I think of other parts of the market, maybe technology based on valuations. But in your mind, what are the places that are going to reap the most benefit from that?
Yeah. So I'm looking at September 98 and September 2024 as the playbook, because those are both years where the Fed was on extended pause and they cut in September. The number 1 trade is NASDAQ 100. So I think that's why the Mag 7 and the AI trade gets a lot of liftoff. The second is monetary liquidity sensitivity, global central banks easing. That's Bitcoin and Ethereum. And seasonally strong, I think they could make a monster move in the next 3 months, like huge. And the third, of course, is interest rate sensitives. That's really small caps and financials.
So Tom Lee reckons
really
the next 3 months are going to be absolutely mind-blowing for crypto. Now there is the contrarian view, which says, look, are rate cuts actually positive? And what this shows is that when rates are increased, that's when Bitcoin actually starts to run. Now be careful, because this is not a real thing. And the reason why it's not a real thing is because what you will notice is that only after rates have bottomed, when you increase rates, the market starts to run for risk assets. Now, why does that happen? Is because usually by this time, when rates have been bottomed for a while, the economy is so overheated that this is the aftermath of the overheated economy. And what they're doing here is they're starting to slow things down to try and slow down the economy. So don't fall into that trap if you actually see that trap actually happening. The one thing to look at is to look at the US 20-year Treasury yield. And the reason why you want to look at the US 20-year Treasury yield is because what you can see is that every single bull market starts with the US 20-year Treasury yield actually coming down. And what this shows is it actually shows that Bitcoin is behind. Because if you look here, by this time, the market should already have run. Like, look at that. The market should run already. And it looks like we're very, 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 very far behind. And so that's what I want to talk about. I want to talk about this potential catch-up trade. Because what it looks like is it looks like Bitcoin is super far behind. This data came out today. that shows, not data out there, but I saw this data today, which kind of shows that if you look at all the Bitcoin bull markets, now these are obviously bear markets, but if you look at all the Bitcoin bull markets, this is the worst Bitcoin bull market ever. This year, in the post-halving year, Bitcoin's supposed to have its best performance in the bull market. And so far, it's got a 23% performance. Now look, some of it could be because Bitcoin is a more mature asset and it's much harder to move Bitcoin up. But just in general, it feels like this market hasn't been heated at all. Like we haven't had leverage being heated at all in this market. It feels like we haven't had 1 week of fear and greed being in extreme greed. And so what it feels like is it feels like this market's lagging. It feels like it's lagging the NASDAQ. It feels like Bitcoin's lagging gold. And it's not the first time that it's done that. In fact, what you can see is that the NASDAQ and gold are very well correlated up right now. The correlation is pretty high. It's very close to 1 actually. And they are both going up and they are both at record highs. Okay, but now let's look at what happens when Bitcoin loses its correlation with both Bitcoin and gold. So this is a chart that shows the NASDAQ, the S&P 500, and it shows the Bitcoin correlation. Now, 1 means that it's totally correlated, and below or -1 means it's adversely inversely correlated, meaning when one goes down, the other one goes up. Right now, we're at 0, and we've been down quite a bit, and we're climbing back towards 0. That means that Bitcoin has decorrelated from the NASDAQ, the S&P, and gold. Now, what's happened in every other time that's happened? Well, in bull markets, so very important. In bull markets, generally, every time that happens, we get a rise in the Bitcoin price. So if you go back and you look at all the inverse correlations in the bull market, where Bitcoin is decorrelated from stocks and from the NASDAQ, there's one of two things that can happen, right? Either the NASDAQ and stocks have to come back to Bitcoin, or the other way around. The gold and the NASDAQ, or Bitcoin has to go to the NASDAQ and stocks. NASDAQ, stocks, and gold. And in bull markets, what generally tends to happen when they decorrelate, specifically when it is Bitcoin that's actually lagging, is you get Bitcoin actually going back towards the other guys. And that's why we could actually get quite a big catch-up trade here. So I'm not discounting a catch-up trade, because we're also behind when it comes to 𝗥𝗂𝗃. The 𝗥𝗂𝗃's gone down 10% this year. Bitcoin hasn't responded like that. There's also a sentiment disconnect. The stock markets are at greed and almost extreme greed, and Bitcoin is in neutral. So there's a massive disconnect. There's another disconnect over here. Look at this. When you compare Bitcoin to USD, we're in extreme greed or in greed. But if you compare Bitcoin to gold, we're not in extreme greed. So basically, long story short, I think there could be a catch-up trade. I think Tom Lee's right. And I think in Q4, we could actually get this massive catch-up trade. And I'm hoping that's what's going to happen. Obviously, I'm on high alert for tomorrow. I did tell you guys why I'm on high alert for tomorrow. Watch yesterday's video and watch this video over here, because it'll also break down here why you should probably be on high alert. This is probably one of the most important videos that you'll actually land up watching. So that's the Bitcoin story, and that's the rate cut story. Let's talk about altcoins, because there's massive news when it comes to altcoins, right? And that news was actually announced yesterday at Basecamp. Basecamp is the Base meeting, the Base meetup. And yesterday at Basecamp, 𝗕𝗫𝗄𝗃 came out and said, well, we're actually exploring a token. Surprise, surprise. I swear I didn't feel like going to dig through the archives, but I told you guys ages ago when they launched Base, eventually they'll land up losing the token. Now look, Brian Armstrong is being very, very cautious about this whole thing. Jessie, who's the founder of Base, he's being a bit more vocal about it.
Hey everybody, just got off the stage at Basecamp where we had a bunch of exciting announcements. So first off, we talked about how we're helping builders build, grow, and earn with tools and incentives and distribution. We talked about how we're making Base the everything economy by building a bridge from Solana to Base to make it easier for developers to build integrated experiences. And then finally, we talked a little bit about a new day one for Base, which is that we're starting to explore a token. And we don't have it figured out. It's still very, very early, but it feels like the next chapter where we can figure out how do we use this new tool to decentralize Base, to align all of the builders, the creators.
They are finally admitting that they're going to launch a token. Now let's call a spade a spade. What actually happened here? They would have launched a token from day one. The problem is the administration wasn't favorable, right? they couldn't have launched a Base token and been a US listed company with Gary Gensler in power. But now that the regime's changed, they can change their tune. And they can basically say, look, we're exploring a Base token. Why? Because of decentralization, because we feel that it needs to be decentralized. Just to be clear, there's no definitive plans. We're just updating our philosophy. Basically, what he's saying is that there's a Base token coming. The reason that they are citing for the Base token is to make the Base ecosystem bigger, to be bigger than just Coinbase, to get more decentralization. That's the reasons that they cited for this Base token. I'm not going to bore you with the whole discussion here. Why are they doing a token? Listen.
Started pulling our head up from that and thinking about the next chapter, 2026 and beyond. We've asked ourselves, we're at tens of millions of people today. What does it look like for Base to meet for everyone on a global scale, for billions of people? And we didn't know all the answers, but we zeroed in on a few things. The first is that we believe that Base has to be a decentralized network. And we made good progress on this. Base is stage 1 today, but we also have a lot more work to do. Second, we believe at our core that builders, that creators, that the people participating in the economy have to be aligned participants. Because the economy can only work if we're the ones shaping it and benefiting from it. And then finally, we know that we need to keep pushing the boundaries of what we can do with crypto. Because the only way we're going to have this positive impact on the world is if we're willing to push boundaries and be creative and figure out how these new tools...
They're saying, look, it's about making the Base ecosystem bigger. It's about rewarding creators on Base, developers on Base, etc., etc. It's about decentralization, which is the next chapter over here. Guys, we know that this was always planned and that this is just basically an excuse. You can see now that they said Base is beginning to explore a new network token. They've actually changed their thing. And so it's a serious thing. Now, the big question is, if it launches, how big is this token actually going to be? Like, is it going to be as big as Solana? Probably not. Why? Because when you look at the valuations or the activity, and I've just pulled up 3 charts here. I've pulled up Solana, which is green, then Base, and then 𝗬𝗎. You can see that this is more along the lines of 𝗬𝗎, but they do have the Coinbase a client base and the onboarding mechanism, which 𝗬𝗎 doesn't have. So it's going to be somewhere between 𝗬𝗎 and Solana. And then there's another big question here. The big question here is, will this token actually be like a Coinbase token as well? In other words, will institutional clients get discounts, just like the BNB token or the Mantle token? Will Coinbase actually muddy the layer 1 token or the layer 2 token with the exchange token? Those are the big questions that need to be answered. Regardless, one thing that you got to remember is that right now, Coinbase is the only sequencer on Base, right? They have like this, it's not decentralized. It is one sequencer, which sequences all the transactions, right? And they make a lot of money actually doing it. In fact, they made $50 million in the last quarter from the sequencing fees on Base. Now, one of the things about decentralization means that they'd have to give that up. And if they gave it up, that would have an impact on the Coinbase share. And so I've seen a lot of legal letters and legal threats of people saying, look, you told us you'd never have a Base token, so we went and bought the Coinbase share because we thought there'd never be a Base token, and now you've changed your mind. I mean, of course they can do that, but you've got to listen to rats and mice. The other big thing that they announced yesterday is they announced a seamless bridge between Solana and Base, which is kind of weird because Solana is kind of like their biggest competitor, right? And yesterday they announced like the seamless bridge between Solana and Base.
For a better global economy to work, we need it to be interoperable and connected, not isolated and closed. If it's isolated and closed, we risk rebuilding the same silos that we have today on a new tech. And to help make this vision a reality, I'm really excited that today we're launching a new bridge between Base and Solana.
So it's a massive bridge between Base and Solana, and that means that on Base, listen to this, on the Base app.
I'm so excited about this. I'm so excited about this. And it's built for developers. The goal of this bridge is to make it so you can build seamlessly across both Base and Solana with Sol, with ERC20s, and with SPL tokens. It lets you do
So long story short, this Base token is going to launch. The biggest beneficiary of this is actually Aerodrome. Why? Because now you've got this bridge between Base and Solana, which means that the tokens are basically interoperable. And so Aerodrome is one of the biggest ones that's actually going to benefit from this. And that's why Aerodrome actually was having a good day. I don't know. I think the market's obviously come down a little bit since I started making the show. Look, the Base token's a long way away, but you can actually start prepping. Start using Base, start using the apps on Base, start staking on Base, etc., etc. Why? Because they are definitely going to do an airdrop. There's a thing called on-chain score.xyz, which basically shows you how much activity you're actually doing this. And it says, interestingly, Brian Armstrong, the co-founder of Coinbase, released a site in 2024 where you can check your Base on-chain score. Now you should go and do that because that'll show you, that's probably going to become some kind of mechanism for the airdrop calculator. And, you know, I don't know when they're going to start or when they're going to take the snapshot, but start using all the Base apps or all the Base apps. Also, if you want to know like the tokens that are going to run, just see what Coinbase ecosystem or Base ecosystem fund is holding. And that, like, you can kind of know that those tokens are going to come onto the market and actually going to even actually going to run as well. All right, so that's Base, and that's the big news on Base. Let's talk about Solana. I don't know if you guys heard this, but yesterday 𝗏𝗏 came out and he actually admitted on CNBC that Solana is their biggest holding.
Our biggest position is Solana. We have 1.1 billion of Solana on our books.
So Pantera has $1.1 billion of Solana on their books. That's crazy.
Has only 1/20th of the market cap of Bitcoin. So I think it can outperform over time. And I think it's our current opinion that it outperforms Ethereum. Our biggest position.
Tomorrow I've got 𝗏𝗏 doing a stream with me. I'll drop that on Friday. So tomorrow we've got FOMC, so we'll prepare for the FOMC. Then Thursday we've got a show, and then Friday I'm going to drop the 𝗏𝗏 show. And we'll talk to him a lot about Solana and why they're so excited about Solana. We'll also talk to him about the digital asset treasury company. We'll talk about all of that. Today I want to spend a little bit more time talking about Pump. There's a reason why I want to talk about PumpFun. Because there's a lot of negativity around PumpFun. A lot of people are looking at this and going, these streams, it's just a bunch of fuckery. A lot of people are saying it's a way to rug your community, and especially if big creators like us participate in Pump.fun. Yeah, you know, you're going to rag the community, and people get hurt. And how can a company that says that it's going to build the most profitable community in the world actually engage in Pump? Let me be very clear with you here. What the market is telling you that this is a revolution in streaming, right? Because for the first time in a long time, and it even goes far to say for the first time in history, there is a way for creators to sustainably be rewarded. Now, what it means by sustainably be rewarded, the live streams are linked to a coin. The trading fees on the coin, a percentage of the trading fees go to the creators. That's a sustainable model. And I want to explain to you what that actually does. Imagine watching a tennis match. Have you ever watched a tennis match and then like phoned your mate and said, I think Nadal's going to win, I think Federer is going to win, let's take a bet? This is a way to bet on live content immediately, whether content's going to be good, going to be bad, who's going to win. Imagine sports tournaments with two influencers playing, where you're playing on their same PumpFun creator coins. And we're in day one of the revolution. Now, a lot of people are saying, yeah, but you know, the people in PumpFun, the token can go up and it can go down. And when the token goes down, the followers are going to get dragged. Guys, when people go to PumpFun, they're going to a casino. They know they're in a casino. They know they're not there because they're looking for US Treasury yields, right? They're there because of the casino. And I think that this is the beginning of a streaming revolution, right? It's a streaming revolution. Alex Becker did something very interesting last night. I don't know if you guys watched, but he launched a coin. He made $300,000 in fees, and then he shared the fees with his community. That's another big use case of people trading during a stream and then sharing with the people that actually watch the stream. And to be honest, I want to do it with you guys very soon. We're just trying to find the right mechanism to actually do it. I think this is the beginning of a streaming revolution at the moment. And I think that this is one of the biggest metas that crypto has seen, right? Someone says the whole bull market, people have been crying for an NFT like Meta that will onboard retail. This is the Meta that could onboard retail. And when they come and they create the coins, just look at how many coins are starting to be created all of a sudden because of this new mechanism where streamers can stream anything. And look, it is crazy. When you go there and you actually look at the streams, some of the streams are absolutely, absolutely crazy. I mean, let's try and find one or two like crazy ones now. Let me unmute the site. Let's try and find some crazy streams with some, I mean, what is she streaming? Let's see. Let's just see what she's streaming. I'm not sure what she's streaming. Let's find out what other people are streaming. There's some this is the running guy. This guy is running on a treadmill, or he walks on a treadmill and he sleeps all day. This is the guy. I don't know if you guys have been watching it. His coin is trading at 3.1 million. Yeah. So the idea, let's just see if we can get into his creator profile. See if we can. Okay, so I mean, you can see the kind of streams that he's making.
Okay.
So I mean, and this has got a $3.2 million market cap, and he's making a lot of money as a creator. A lot of people are making a lot of money. Yesterday, there was a guy who strapped a GoPro onto his cat and made the most insane content by strapping a GoPro onto his cat. Don't discount this, because this is not money coming from token emissions. This is almost like a watching casino when you're watching content, and people are making a lot of money. And I think it's true, because if you listen to like what Alon says, he says, why stream? When you stream on PumpFun, you get instant creator fees, instant viewership with a community that's incentivized to support, free clipping on X, and 24/7 support from the team, right? Coincidentally, on YouTube, Sheldon tried to launch his new channel. And the first video, which was actually a very fucking good video, they took it down for absolutely no reason. Okay, absolutely, I watched the video, there was nothing wrong with it. We applied to YouTube, and they knocked it, and they said no. The AI obviously looked at it and said we're removing that video. We then went onto Twitter, and we tried to go onto Twitter and to speak to YouTube, and they're basically like, they can't help you. They can't help. Heard back to confirming that your video will remain down. You can read through the email on the policy. That's the difference. We need to be supporting things like PumpFun. Otherwise, we've got a gun to our head when it comes to being live on YouTube. And that's one of the reasons why we started multiple channels, right? So that if something happens to the main channel, we've always got the other channels and stuff like that. So yes, there's a lot of crazy stuff happening, but I do think it's a revolution in content creation. I mean, this guy ragged. He said he had 120 hours to live and wants money for his family. He token reaches $500,000 market cap. He earned $14,000 in creator fees, and he ragged the stream. I mean, poor guy. Like, I think he deserves the money, to be honest. Yeah, so that is don't discount PumpFun. I think it's very much a creator revolution, and I think we're just in the beginning. And yes, right now maybe there's rags and maybe tokens are going up and down, but that's part of the fun. People go to PumpFun because things go up and down. I think people know that there's been 20 million coins launched on PumpFun, and like maybe 100 of them have graduated and means amazing. I'm getting messages. Let's see what these messages are. Yeah. What else is there? Guys, remember a couple of things. Remember this thing with EdgeX, right? So EdgeX is this perpetuals DEX, right? It's basically a PumpFun competitor, right? And it has a lot of trading pairs, and they're doing a lot of volume, a ton of volume. It's a very serious competitor, and there's a way to get an airdrop here, right? So what I suggest you do, honestly, go now. It's a very serious competitor. Go now to an open account using this link over here and start trading on the exchange. If you do, you'll be eligible for the airdrop, which is happening between now and the end of the year. You remember how much money people made from PumpFun, from Hyperliquid? Don't be that guy that didn't do it. Just go and try it out. You lose nothing. It's a non-custodial wallet, which means that you keep your own money. They can't rag you, basically. Yeah. Someone says drink water with vinegar. I'm drinking minerals. Also remember, if you want the buy one, get one free on Bitfunded, I'm going to extend that for another 24 hours. So if you want to do trading on somebody else's money, 10,000, 15,000, 25,000, now's probably a good time to do it. $100,000 account for $799. If you buy one, you also get one free, but you got to use, you just go now in the next 24 hours, buy one and get one free. And then lastly, before we go, remember that 𝗏𝗏, which is this new L1 blockchain, launches sometime next week. I'm very, very, very excited about 𝗏𝗏 because why? It's an AI-centric blockchain. And what do I mean by an AI-centric blockchain? When you're running an AI application, you need certain things, right? You need data availability, you need an L1, you need storage. And then you need a marketplace, and you kind of need them all in one place, right? Because if you want to train an AI model, you got to have data that's available. You got to be able to store the data on chain somewhere, and you got to be able to have a marketplace where you can buy and sell things, right? So So that's why I'm excited about this. It launches next week. And remember I said to you that I managed to get $20,000 worth of pre-listing tokens. Anyone that opens an account on 𝗨𝗏𝗏 or Bybit, we're going to get the account numbers that have been opened up during this period. And then I'm going to distribute the $20,000 to your account, the $20,000 worth of tokens. And hopefully when they launch, they'll be much higher than $20,000. All right, chaps, that's it for today. I'll see you guys again tomorrow. Until then, trade well, my friends.